It's weird to think, and it really is. It's weird to think that we're 4.5 years into GamerGate, right? We're a little over 4.5 years. And people still keep bringing it up. They still keep talking about it. And it's not necessarily people on the pro side of Gamergate. It comes up occasionally in conversation. Many times if it comes up to between me and other friends of mine, it's like, hey, remember when that whole thing went down? Remember the good old days of the fall of 2014? Remember how life was back then? And everyone's like, yeah. And that's really about it. It becomes more reminiscing about the culture war. Like we all get around and get drunk and just talk about the war stories. We've turned into our grandfathers, with the exception of our grandfathers fought in an actual war, and we just bitched about shit on the internet. But that's kind of where it's at this point. That's pretty much just where it's at. Gamergate is a memory, not a reality, not a real thing, not an ongoing occurrence. It's a memory. It's done. It's dead. Unless it can be dragged up out of the depths of the internet history in order to be able to be used as a weapon. And that's kind of what's happening right now, once again, with our good old friend, Brianna Wu. Because she went on MSNBC. On Bloomberg, and she was being interviewed, and the whole subject came up about Brie Larson and Captain Marvel, and Brianna's got some interesting thoughts. She's got some very interesting thoughts about what should be done in regards to this. So let's take a listen, shall we?
Year and a half of fighting. A lot could happen in that time. We're potentially waiting for federal privacy legislation. What do you think what's the single most important issue to you in 30 seconds?
Well, the biggest issue for me is what people in my
think about this? I'm sure this doesn't surprise you. I'm sure this doesn't surprise you.
It's kind of a familiar story at this point, right? We were here with Ghostbusters. It seems like any time a woman steps forward and tries to put her toe in the water for a male-dominated field, we're right back here. It's so frustrating.
Do you think, and the social media platforms have been, they say, working hard. Twitter has made a lot of changes to fight online harassment, but does this go to show they're just not getting it or doing enough?
You know what I'm thinking? Your first story was about Facebook moving to more privacy. And I feel like part of the backlash of women just being exhausted with being targeted online, it makes sense that people would want to move towards more private social profiles. So I think it's hand in hand, and I think it's just exhausting for all of us dealing with
So
this
you
stuff.
think that privacy is a gendered issue?
I do,
essentially.
Absolutely, I do. Well, it affects men too, for sure, but yeah.
So do you think that because these, they're trying to get out of control, and Mark Zuckerberg will see what a more private Facebook actually looks like. Does this mean we need legislation?
Well, I think that there is certainly a role in Washington for us to address what women face both in the tech industry and what users face on the other side. Something we've seen is really big promises from Facebook, from Twitter, from Reddit, from all these companies that they're going to address this situation. For me, looking at this, in 2019, it's very hard for me to point to one thing that's concretely changed for women in the tech industry. So I do think Washington has a role to play.
What is that?
Okay, Washington has a role to play in legislating harassment on the internet, is essentially what she's saying. And trust me, this video is being ratioed like a mofo at this point in time. A lot of people out there are like, Brianna, no. Because I don't really think in this particular conversation, she's got much of a leg to stand on, if I'm being truthfully honest. She integrated herself into a battle by going on to 8chan and posting memes, mocking them, and then got mad when they clapped back. And she's been mad about that now for 4.5 years. And she's used it as a way to push her really terrible iOS game that ultimately went nowhere, probably got some sales due to the controversy at the time. She's used this to try to run an unsuccessful congressional campaign to be the representative of her district, which she lost to an incumbent who was much more popular. However, I will say, she got a lot more of the vote than I figured she would have. She got like 37% of the vote. That is actually frightening. So in 2020, she's running again. That could, if this dude screwed up, be what gets her into the Congress. And if you, oh man, yeah, I don't want that at all. Because listen, Online harassment, I don't believe is a gendered issue. I believe it impacts both genders. I think that, or any and all genders, depending on how you want to look at it. I think everyone gets shit. There is a lot of people on the internet. There's a lot of anonymity on the internet. There's a lot of people out there who have got multiple burner accounts on the internet, and they use this to consistently go after people. Those of us who go into the online space and put our voices and our opinions out there, we are always going to get shit. What we do with that information, or how we handle that, though, is on a case-by-case basis. Some people handle it much better than others. All right, they do. But at the end of the day, that's what it boils down to, is people do have the right to voice their opinion. The problem of what Brianna's talking about is when you are a person in the public space on social media that makes a comment, makes a claim, and then you get dogpiled for it. Dealing with that level of response in like a real-time basis, I think it can mess with anybody. If I'm being truthfully honest with you here, I think it can mess with anybody. I think if you get it and you don't know how to handle that kind of thing, your response to it can make it either good or bad. Like, it's never going to make it good. Let me just be clear. It's never going to make it good, but you can mitigate the damage. And you can lessen the damage, and you can lessen the impact of it, and you can also strengthen the impact of it, all depending on your response. If you get out there and you just continuously try to fight everybody, you will just lose. It's a battle of attrition, and you being one person taking on the whole of anonymous troll Twitter armies is simply not going to work. Your best course of action ultimately is to just disengage, let it blow over, because eventually they're going to find a new target. And that is just, well, the absolute truth of it. You're always going to have the people who hang on for whatever reason. They're always going to be around watching whatever you say for whatever reason. But that is, again, also par for the course. And the more often you keep yourself out there in the public space, the more things you say people are going to be able to comment on. And then again, it's all par for the course. There's literally no way around it. I was talking about this a few months ago with my therapist, and she bluntly pointed to me. She's like, you cannot control what people say about you or what people think about you. So even attempting in any way, shape, or form was a bad call, is a bad move. Do not do it. And those words rung true, because it is true. That's just how it is. People are going to say things. You have to just get a thick skin and move on with it. Social media has done so much to push against actual logical discourse in our world that it really does require everyone to get the thickest skin humanly possible and roll with it. It's not always easy. It's much easier said than done. Not everyone's going to be able to do it in the same way. Not everyone's going to be able to do it at all. But you have to at least make the attempt. What Brianna Wu wants to do here is talk about legislation from our government to tackle online harassment predominantly facing women, because that's her whole angle. If she gets elected into Congress, if she becomes a junior representative or whatever, or just a one-term representative, that's going to be her primary focus, is running on that. And that to me is frightening. Not to say that we don't need to find a way to curb actual online harassment where people have their information used against them. Why we have our information for sale in the way that it is for sale to all these different websites and outlets in order to acquire our personal information, most of the time, actually all of the time, without our knowledge and or consent. And that becomes a real problem when people out there start getting doxxed and the fears of harassment start happening in real life. But as we move closer and closer and closer to the future, we start seeing those lines get closer together, where it's real life and it's internet, and that comes together. So when it comes to dealing with, like, let's say anti-swatting laws, I'm 100% for that. That's attempted murder, and you're an asshole if you do it. Also, anti-doxing laws, where your information is used in a weaponized fashion against you. That's something I do agree with. But somebody having a negative opinion of you online and then espousing that opinion, and then like the authorities come down on you, I just kind of have to respond by saying, are we the UK? Are we Britain? Are we Europe? Is that where we are now in America? I mean, no. If I call someone an idiot on the internet, it's between me and that person. It's back and forth between me and that person. They don't need to sit there and reach out and contact the government. That is bad. That is bad. Don't do that. What Brianna Wu wants to do here is basically make sure that, like, people who criticized her, who might still criticize her for the things that she says in public, which are generally and more often than not stupid, or cries for attention, ways for her to end up getting a whole bunch, like getting on sci-fi. And like, what was it, 2015? getting on the Sci-Fi Channel for an episode called "The Internet Ruined My Life." You know, that was bad. That was pretty terrible. And I mean, clearly just like really exaggerating certain things, because people dug into Brianna Wu when she said she had to flee her home, and they proved that she just went back to her home, which she shouldn't have ever been in a position to where she felt she had to flee her home. I do want to make that abundantly clear. All right. But at the same time, it's like you went back to your home. You didn't leave. If you would have fled your home, you wouldn't have been there doing news interviews, less than 12 hours later, is essentially what I'm trying to say here. So when I look at someone like Brianna Wu, you could argue everything that comes out of her mouth is just grade A self-serving bullshit. Never once thinking about anyone else other than herself, because that's how she makes her money. She creates a problem. She creates a narrative. She pushes you this dream fantasy, well, really a horror nightmare world is how she frames it. And then that she is the only one who can solve the problem. And now she wants to get into actual politics. Her video game failed. She never did Rev 62 or Revolution 62. She never did a sequel to it, never did a follow-up to it, even though she had all the popularity off of her name. She tried getting into the speaker circuit. That kind of dropped off when she stopped, when it came out that she's basically a one-trick pony. And now she's attempting to get into politics. If you live in her district in Massachusetts, and I'm not too sure which district it is, you cannot allow her to become an elected member of Congress. I'm telling you, if you value the sanctity of the internet, you cannot allow her to become an elected member of Congress. Trust me on that one. I know what I'm talking about. I'm a doctor on the internet. But no, seriously, all things considered, you can't do it. It's a bad call. It's a bad thing. Don't do it. Just don't. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this clip from Whatever. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to thumbs up the video, subscribe. You can even submit your own stories to peskyadblock@gmail.com or call the voicemail line. If you want to help support the channel financially, you can always join the channel, become a member today, or go to patreon.com/mundane Matt. Thank you guys again so much. Have yourself a great day, and peace out.